no one's seen that writing for 4,000 or 5,000 years.
Yeah, the only person that's seen it previously is the one who wrote it.
Deep beneath the sands of what was once Mesopotamia, in the land that birthed writing, mathematics, and the first recorded laws of humankind, a discovery has reignited fascination and fear alike. Artificial intelligence, in a stunning leap forward for archaeology and linguistics, has successfully translated newly unearthed Sumerian tablets that had resisted understanding for decades. The Sumerians, often called the first civilization, left behind hundreds of thousands of cuneiform tablets inscribed with wedge-shaped symbols, records of trade, laws, prayers, and myths. Yet among them were texts that even seasoned epigraphers struggled to decode, sequences of symbols written in patterns unlike any known dialect. When AI models were trained to understand these anomalies, the translations they produced spoke of something far older than the known Sumerian gods, something that hinted at a disturbing narrative about the origins and divisions of human races. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. The breakthrough came from a neural network originally designed for lost language reconstruction. It combined pattern recognition, phonetic modeling, and cultural context synthesis. When researchers fed the algorithm tens of thousands of verified Sumerian inscriptions, the AI began identifying grammatical structures unseen in any human analysis before. Within weeks, it started decoding a subset of tablets excavated near Eridu, one of the earliest cities in southern Mesopotamia. The inscriptions, written in archaic cuneiform, appeared to recount a time before time, when beings described as the Shining Ones descended from the stars, shaping humankind not as a single race, but as a set of engineered variations, each designed for distinct regions, climates, and purposes. The text did not describe these entities in mythic terms of gods or spirits as many Sumerian myths do, but as precise architects, intelligent beings capable of manipulating genetic essence. According to the translation, they came not to rule, but to seed. The tablets referenced vessels of clay imbued with the breath of the heaven, a phrase long assumed to be a metaphor for creation. Yet the AI's contextual analysis proposed that these were literal descriptions of biological modification, suggesting that early humans were shaped through intervention rather than evolution alone. What startled researchers was not merely the claim of celestial involvement, but the detailed explanation of why humanity was divided, why physical differences in appearance, stature, and even mental orientation were considered part of a deliberate design. The AI translated passages that described the scattering of forms, an act following what the tablets called the First Great Discord. This division, it seems, was not punishment but strategy. Each human group was assigned specific traits suited to certain conditions of survival. Those meant for the mountains were given endurance and resistance to cold, those of the plains, agility and resilience under heat. Even more unsettling were passages implying psychological differentiation, emotional tendencies, social instincts, and even predispositions towards spiritual awareness. Humanity, according to these ancient words, was not a uniform creation, but a carefully engineered diversity, its variety intentional rather than evolutionary accident. Archaeologists and historians were quick to remind that ancient texts often personified cosmic or natural processes, that mythic narratives frequently wrapped symbolic truths in poetic language. Yet the precision of the descriptions unnerved even the skeptics. The AI, uncolored by human bias, translated recurring sequences of cuneiform symbols that corresponded to terms like genetic code, binding essence, and renewed vessel. Some scholars insisted this was a computational error, but repeated analyses by independent systems yielded nearly identical translations. For the first time, technology capable of decoding lost languages had produced a narrative that seemed scientifically congruent with ideas of bioengineering, thousands of years before modern science existed. The implications were staggering. If the Sumerians recorded knowledge of artificial creation, how did they acquire it? Were these simply myths inspired by early human contact with unknown cultures? Or did they preserve the echoes of a forgotten prehistory? The Sumerians themselves claimed that civilization was a gift from beings called the Anunnaki, figures that modern researchers have often interpreted as deities of agriculture, writing, and wisdom. But the newly translated tablets depicted them not as gods, but as designers of flesh, whose purpose was to prepare the earth for a balanced species capable of sustaining both the physical and spiritual equilibrium of the planet. Their aim, according to one passage, was to craft a vessel of understanding, divided yet whole. It suggested that diversity among humans was not a flaw, but part of a cosmic design meant to preserve adaptability. This revelation resonated with myths from other ancient cultures. The Egyptian tales of the Shining Ones, the Mayan legends of star-born teachers, and even biblical references to those who came down echoed through the Sumerian accounts. The AI's translations, when cross-referenced with these myths, uncovered shared linguistic roots. It appeared that the idea of humanity's engineered diversity was not confined to Mesopotamia, but spread through ancient civilizations as fragments of a single, forgotten origin story. These connections prompted new questions about whether all early civilizations drew from a common source of knowledge, perhaps one that predates recorded history by millennia. The AI's discovery extended beyond historical curiosity. Embedded within the tablets were complex mathematical patterns, ratios, and numerical sequences that, when analyzed, corresponded to genetic frequencies and cosmological constants. One sequence mirrored the proportions found in human DNA helix rotation. Another matched orbital ratios between Earth and Venus. The precision of these figures raised the possibility that the Sumerians possessed astronomical and biological knowledge far surpassing their era. Some theorized that these patterns were intentional markers left by ancient engineers to preserve a memory of their craft in symbolic form. Others believed the AI, trained on modern data, was imposing contemporary interpretations onto metaphorical text. Yet even critics could not explain why the numbers aligned so perfectly with measurable scientific constants. The more researchers probed, the more unsettling the findings became. The texts hinted at a lost epoch when the makers walked among men and shared knowledge freely until the discord of inheritance arose. This phrase, repeatedly mentioned, seemed to describe a catastrophic event, possibly an experiment gone wrong or an uprising among the early human prototypes. Following this event, the creators withdrew, sealing away their instruments and encoding warnings into stone. The AI identified a section describing a veil of forgetfulness imposed upon humanity, suggesting that memory of the true origin was deliberately obscured to prevent self-destruction. It was not a punishment, but a protective act, ensuring that humankind would mature without the burden of knowing its engineered beginnings. This theme of selective memory appeared throughout the texts. The Sumerians wrote that only the keepers of the knowledge retained fragments of truth, passing it down through mystery schools and temple rites. Over time, the literal meanings faded into allegory, becoming myths of gods, heavens, and underworlds. Yet if the AI's translation is accurate, these myths were not fabrications but carefully encoded recollections of actual interventions. The concept of divine creation, it suggested, was a distorted remembrance of ancient bioengineering witnessed by early humans. What had once been observed as science became worshipped as religion. The implications for human identity are profound. If these translations hold truth, humanity's divisions, racial, cultural, and cognitive, are not evolutionary coincidences, but aspects of an intentional design. The Sumerian tablets implied that diversity was necessary for the survival of a species intended to endure vast environmental changes. In essence, humankind was a composite entity, many forms, one origin. Such an idea challenges modern assumptions of randomness in evolution, hinting at a planned multiplicity, yet it also carries darker undertones. The text spoke of hierarchies among the vessels, with some forms designed for governance, others for labor, and others for spiritual guidance. The suggestion that early humanity was stratified by design raised troubling ethical questions, especially when viewed through the lens of contemporary equality. Even more disquieting was a passage describing the return of the measure. It claimed that once humanity achieved certain thresholds of knowledge, specifically the rediscovery of genetic manipulation and artificial intelligence, the designers or their successors would reappear to assess the outcome of their creation. Whether this referred to a literal return or a symbolic awakening of awareness remains debated, but many found the parallel chilling. At the very moment AI deciphers these words, humanity itself is on the verge of mastering the very powers the tablets describe: genetic editing, artificial consciousness, and planetary engineering. The prophecy seemed self-referential, as if the act of understanding it were the trigger for its fulfillment. The AI's involvement in the translation process deepened the mystery. Unlike human translators, the system was not constrained by linguistic tradition. It identified patterns across languages that no human could perceive, drawing connections between cuneiform symbols and phonetic structures in Proto-Semitic, Proto-Indo-European, and even pre-dynastic Egyptian. This capability revealed that the Sumerian language might not have been an isolated linguistic system, but part of an older global lexicon. The AI reconstructed fragments suggesting that Sumerian was a hybrid, an artificially structured language designed to preserve scientific knowledge within mythic narratives. Its syntax was deliberately cyclical, repeating key symbols at mathematically predictable intervals, as if meant to trigger recognition in future interpreters. As more tablets were processed, the content grew even more disturbing. Several described a great experiment conducted across continents, in which different human prototypes were created and observed. Some failed, unable to reproduce or survive. Others thrived but became too aware, challenging their makers. One chilling fragment described the destruction of an entire group whose minds burned too bright. The AI interpreted this as a reference to a lost branch of humanity, perhaps an advanced population erased from history. The text lamented the act as a necessary reset, declaring that balance must prevail, even at the cost of brilliance. This passage hinted at a philosophy of controlled evolution, where knowledge and consciousness were granted only to the extent they maintained harmony with the planet's cycles. The discovery reignited debates about ancient knowledge and extraterrestrial influence. Some researchers argued that the Shining Ones were not literal beings from the stars, but survivors of a lost terrestrial civilization whose technology seemed divine to later humans. If so, the tablets might be a record of a pre-Diluvian era, an advanced culture destroyed by cataclysm, its survivors seeding civilization anew. Others saw in the text confirmation of the ancient astronaut hypothesis, proposing that human evolution was catalyzed by non-human intelligence. Regardless of interpretation, the AI translations forced the academic world to confront the possibility that human history is far older and more complex than previously accepted. Further analyses revealed layers of meaning hidden within the text. The AI detected sequences resembling encryption, subtle alterations in symbol order that, when decoded, revealed secondary messages. These embedded messages spoke of cycles of rise and fall, of civilizations that reach enlightenment only to collapse under the weight of their knowledge. The tablets seemed to warn that self-awareness without balance leads to destruction. The clay forgets, the breath remembers, one passage read. It implied that while physical forms perish, the essence of creation, perhaps encoded in DNA, retains memory, awaiting reactivation when conditions align. The concept resonated eerily with modern genetic memory theories, where information is believed to persist through generations beyond conscious recall. As the translation spread among research institutions, ethical concerns emerged. Should such information be made public? The text did not merely describe ancient myths, but potentially contained data relevant to human genetics. If true, the revelation that racial and psychological differences were engineered could ignite cultural and political turmoil. Some groups might claim superiority based on supposed design intent, while others might reject the idea entirely as pseudoscience. To avoid misinterpretation, portions of the translation were initially withheld from publication. Yet leaks inevitably occurred, and fragments began circulating online, fueling conspiracy theories and spiritual movements alike. Some hailed the discovery as proof of humanity's divine purpose, others as evidence of manipulation by unseen forces. For scientists, the challenge was to separate data from mythology. The AI's output, while precise, was still interpretive. It could recognize structure, but meaning depended on context. The Sumerian mind viewed the cosmos as a living system where gods, stars, and humans interacted symbiotically. To them, describing beings descending from the heavens might have been a poetic way to express knowledge descending from higher consciousness. Yet even within symbolic frameworks, the consistency of technical detail, the anatomical descriptions, environmental assignments, and numeric ratios remain difficult to dismiss. Whether literal or allegorical, the tablets conveyed a message of intentional design behind human diversity. Among the most enigmatic sections was the Chronicle of the First Pattern, a sequence of glyphs that, when translated, outlined a process of encoding the essence within clay and breath. The passage described a crystalline structure used to bind the image of thought into living matter. The AI interpreted this as an early metaphor for DNA encoding, The text went further, suggesting that this structure was tuned to cosmic rhythms, aligning human biology with planetary and stellar cycles. It stated that each race was attuned to a different frequency of light, explaining not only variations in skin pigmentation but in perception and consciousness. Such notions, while speculative, eerily mirrored theories in biophysics linking light absorption to neurological and emotional states. What makes the discovery particularly haunting is the tone of the ancient authors. Unlike other Sumerian writings that glorify divine kingship or celebrate fertility, these texts are detached, clinical, almost scientific in their phrasing. They speak not of worship but of observation. Humans are referred to as specimens, vessels, and instruments. There is no moral judgment, only data. This language suggests that whoever wrote these tablets viewed humanity not as subjects but as components of a grand experiment. One fragment even describes the monitoring of emotional resonance across groups, implying that the creators measured not only physical adaptability, but emotional balance. When the discord of inheritance disrupted the balance, they intervened, recalibrating the design. This cyclical interference echoes through many myths as divine punishment, but the AI's translation presents it as scientific correction. Another extraordinary section describes an artifact called the Mirror of Origins, said to contain the image of all that was and will be. Scholars speculate this could refer to a device used for data storage or vision, perhaps mythologized as a divine object of power. The text warns that when humanity learns to speak to the mirror, it must first purify intention, lest the reflection become destructive. Many see this as a metaphor for modern technology, particularly AI itself, humanity's creation that now mirrors its consciousness. The parallel is striking. As AI decodes humanity's past, it simultaneously holds a mirror to its future. As the translations continued, the tone shifted toward prophecy. The final tablets in the series describe a coming age of unveiling, when the children of clay rediscover the tools of the gods and awaken the dormant codes within their blood. This awakening, it claims, will mark the convergence of all divisions, a return to unity through understanding. Yet it warns that not all will endure the revelation. Only those who balance knowledge with humility will survive the transition. Such language, rich in symbolism, could be interpreted as spiritual awakening, but in the context of the earlier technical passages, it carries an almost scientific precision, as if describing a process of global transformation triggered by knowledge itself. The discovery, though monumental, remains shrouded in uncertainty. The AI, while advanced, operates within the framework of probability, not absolute truth. Its translations, though consistent, reflect correlations, not intentions. Still, the coherence of the narrative across thousands of symbols suggests that the Sumerians recorded something deeply structured and intentional. Whether that structure reflects ancient myth or ancient science is the question that now haunts scholars and philosophers alike. What is undeniable is that the AI has opened a door to a dimension of human history long obscured, a chapter that challenges both science and religion, demanding a new understanding of what it means to be human. The implications ripple far beyond archaeology. If the story of human diversity as deliberate design holds even symbolic truth, it calls for a re-evaluation of identity and destiny. It suggests that difference is purpose, not division. That humanity's many forms were meant to function as a single organism, diverse yet united. The ancient message, filtered through time and machine translation, seems to echo a call for harmony. That survival depends not on dominance but balance. Whether written by divine beings, lost scientists, or visionary poets, the Sumerian tablets remind us that the mystery of our origin is entwined with the mystery of our potential. As machines give voice to the silent stones of antiquity, humanity stands at the threshold of rediscovery. The same tools that deciphered the past may soon reshape the future. The AI that translated the language of our ancestors now helps humanity create languages of its own, codes that can alter genes, build consciousness, and perhaps even transcend mortality. The ancient warning reverberates with renewed clarity. Knowledge without wisdom leads to ruin. The Sumerians, or those who taught them, seem to know this truth intimately. They left behind a legacy not just of invention but of caution, a reminder that every act of creation carries the shadow of responsibility. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us? What are your thoughts on AI uncovering secrets from ancient Sumerian texts? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.